where you going, ma'am?
That's my second question.
Okay.
Well, maybe to start out,
You understand?
yes, yep.
Okay.
You know, some years ago, these shafts, Washington Avenue is right here. Okay, and we have several vertical shafts into the tunnel. We have a sanitary shaft over here at Pettit Avenue, and we have a sanitary shaft at Elizabeth Street right here. We have a sanitary shaft at Main Street, which is here. And back in probably the 50s or 60s, the first storm shaft was installed at Elizabeth Street, again, approximately here. And at that time, you know, they were developing Golden Hill and the residential around in the vicinity. And so there was a lot of stormwater being generated. So at that time, that's why the first shaft was installed. And
just to kick in here, remember, as I stated earlier, that was way before the local law that was adopted to ensure that those stormwater that would be mitigated with stormwater management techniques.
Let me clarify.
Are you looking for you?
yeah, no, I just want to get this background, and so people understand why the tunnels were put in place in the
I think
first
she's looking
place.
for a different answer.
Yes, yes, I know exactly what she's looking for. And but in the early 90s, there was, you know, there had been some severe flooding in the Route 32 Glen Street area and Washington Avenue. And so a large vertical shaft was installed at Greenkill Avenue, 36-inch shaft. And that handles the drainage from this area here, Golden Hill, Route 32. At that same time, we put a shaft, a 30-inch vertical shaft at the Tannery Brook, right about here.
What's the depth, 80 to 100 feet?
About 80 feet. And that was to handle storm drainage from this area here, the Tannery Brook drainage district. Now, before this tunnel was put in place, it passed under Washington Avenue and between properties all the way down to Lucas Avenue, where it joined with the same system that feeds, or that comes from the Main Street drainage. So you had both of these two drainage systems feeding into one choke point here, and there was severe uptown flooding because of that. So we intercepted the flows here at the Tannery Brook and Washington Avenue intersection, and that's why that shaft was put into place. If we don't maintain this, we will again have severe flooding in the uptown area. So that is why it's imperative that we repair this thing and not put in a bridge and abandon the thing as has been suggested by some. What you're asking, Mrs. Barnes, about the improvements that we are planning to do upstream here, I believe. And that is, we expect to pipe part of the Tannery Brook up to, possibly up to Hewitt Street in order to, as Dennis had suggested before, to collect the surface drainage and reduce groundwater recharge, which is driving this whole thing. So is that what your question?
That was the second part of the question.
Yeah.
Let me back up to the other chart, please.
You want to see the other
Yes.
chart?
Yes.
And the main reason for asking that
This one, right?
yes, red part, blue part. I
Right.
happened to be here earlier when Mr. Larios was talking about part
Right.
of the tunnel going through bedrock, part of the tunnel
Right.
going
Now
through soil with cribbing.
From Gilead Street is where the outlet is. The construction started at this point here. It's wholly in rock. And this is a rock tunnel up to just south of the Tannery Brook shaft, about 160 feet south of the Tannery Brook shaft. At that point, it transitions to this masonry detail, which is shown in our design drawings here.
And goes how far?
That
toward
goes
the
for
end?
160, 180 feet to this point just above the shaft, where it again, it goes back into rock. Now, we don't know exactly at what point then it goes back into the masonry detail. But at some point in time, it goes back into that masonry detail again. And that same detail carries on all the way up to Lucas Avenue, well, almost to Lucas Avenue. And then at the end of the tunnel to the Lucas Avenue, Washington Avenue intersection, there is a 24-inch clay tile pipe at a steep slope that connects that shallower system with the deep ground system.
Yeah, to add to what Ralph said, the area obviously where we're having a problem is this 160 feet where we're transitioned, when the gentleman built the tunnel 100 years ago, where they transitioned out of rock into soil, and there's about 160 feet there, and they transitioned back into rock just past the shaft, almost at Linderman Avenue intersection. That is where these problems are occurring. The blue that you asked about is indicative of a storm water flow. The red is indicative of a sanitary enclosure, a conduit. And up here, of course, the dark blue is the Tannery Brook stream that's shown in plan view up here.
So you have then, so you have the shafts would be the stormwater, right? And then right here with the red, consistent with what you said down here, that would be the center.
Right. There's a small shaft on Pettit Avenue that was built when that neighborhood was developed. It's not shown in this plan view. This is from kind of illustrative off the City of New York's 1909 plans, but this gets you the major features. But so at the Linderman Washington Avenue intersection, immediately going towards Greenkill, where the Tannery Brook crosses, that is where the problem is. To try to get back to some property owner concerns that were mentioned earlier, it is about 160 feet of problem area that's been identified as far as length of street. The sinkhole area is all within that 160 feet. 4 properties have been identified by the city as of concern with respect to property damage and possible settlement that could occur if this problem expands. And those have been inspected by a structural engineering firm in Kingston, John Steinmeier, his firm, and a follow-up inspection was done, I think, late last week. Visual inspection to follow up his initial structural inspections, and they will continue to be monitored by the team until the area is fully stabilized. And hopefully, we don't believe that it's going to spread past those 4 properties of concern. At this time, hydrogeologists, soil specialists from Albany all believe that the cone of influence of this sinkhole will stay in the zone it's in currently, with possibly some expansion, some minor expansion laterally. So that's what our goal is to keep it contained, fill the voids, structurally reinforce the tunnel, so we can pump grout and fill the voids without collapsing the tunnel, and keep this flow of stormwater and sanitary going, plug the breach into the sanitary that's occurred in the last week and a half, and then restore everything up at street level, obviously with some stormwater improvements and restoration of properties and street.
Mrs. Barnes, 1 second, Tom. Mrs. Barnes, you got another question?
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
The second part of my question is the piping from Delta to Washington, potentially Hewitt to Washington, a part of this repair effort or separate?
That will be the next phase.
Stage 2.
Our primary focus is to repair the tunnel and to stabilize the Washington Avenue corridor. And then phase 2 will be to design that pipeline so that we can collect some of that local drainage as well as the brook itself, and keep it contained so it doesn't have a chance to recharge the sensitive hydrologic situation that we have.
And that will require, you know, acquiring easements from private property owners, et cetera.
Right.
What
So
timeframe are we
that will
talking
take some
about?
time.
I've asked Dennis to proceed with the survey, and that will identify property lines and property owners. We will conceivably have to, there's 6 or 8 homeowners, property owners that we'll have to.
In stage 2?
In stage 2 that we'll have to deal with. And hopefully they'll give us all those easements that we need.
But that's being worked on right now, okay, doing the survey,
the
which
survey
would then
is-
lead, Mrs. Barnes, okay, to contacting those property owners as part of stage 2's repairs. And then those property owners will be in discussion, okay, with engineering and the city as to the issue of the easement. Just want to reiterate also, too, where Dennis was coming from response to Mr. Van Cleek's concern and the rumors again. There has been no discussion with anyone, okay, at City Hall, be it within Corporation Council, or be it with the engineering department or our outside consultants, as to proceeding with eminent domain. We're not there yet. We have not done our due diligence, okay, to ensure that we can stabilize the areas Ralph has indicated, make the necessary repairs, and have everyone get on with their lives. So again, that's not even in discussion right now at this point. Mr. Hafe, sir?
Back to the...
You're done, Ms. I'm sorry, you're done?
Thanks.
You're welcome.
The sanitary sewer line. If there was